When most people are thinking about relocating to Prince George or buying rural property, they get really excited about the acreage. They love the idea of space, trees, privacy, and all that is great. But there's a whole layer of this purchase that almost nobody talks about until it's too late. Once you cross outside city limits, the municipality is no longer managing your water. You are. And if you're coming from a city, that's a completely different world. Stay with me here because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how private wells work and what it costs when something goes wrong, and the one specific test that should never be skipped on a real estate transaction in BC. Living in Prince George comes in a few different forms. You've got the Bull, College Heights, Heritage, and the Heart. Those are all on city services. Water comes in, wastewater goes out, and you don't think about it. But then you've got what I call the rural commuter havens, places like Beaverly and Buckhorn. Acreage property, bigger lots, real country living, still 10 to 15 minutes from Walmart and big box stores. Here's the deal though, once you buy out there, you become the utility manager. For city buyers moving to Prince George, that shift is real. And for people relocating from Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton, it can catch them completely off guard. I want to break this down in a way that's actually useful because rural properties are some of the best value in this market. You just need to know what you're buying. So let's get into the wells. There are three main types you're going to encounter when buying rural real estate property in Prince George. The first is a dug well. These are wide, shallow, and old school. Some go back decades. They tap into surface water, which means they can dry up in hot summers. And they're highly vulnerable to contamination from nearby septic systems or agricultural runoff. And the second is a sand point well. These are narrow, driven into shallow sandy deposits. Same vulnerabilities as a dug well, same risk profile. You'll see them on older rural properties. And the third, and this is the standard you want to see, is a drilled well. These go deep. We're talking 15 meters at minimum, often 60 meters or more. They tap into confined aquifers far below the surface, which gives you a stable, protected water source. A properly constructed drilled well has a steel or PVC casing that prevents the bore from collapsing, a well screened to filter sediment, and a sealed cap that sits at least 30 to 40 centimeters above the soil to keep insects and surface water out. Provincial setback rules in BC also require the well to be at least 15 to 30 meters from any septic system. That's a non-negotiable regulatory standard. When you're looking at a rural property, the first question is always, what type of well is this and how deep does it go? That answer tells you a lot about the risk profile of what you're considering. Now let's talk about what actually moves the water from the ground to your tap, and that's the pump. And here's where I want you to pay close attention because this is where the real money lives. There are three main pump types. A shallow jet pump sits above the ground, usually in a utility room or pump house. It pulls water from depths less than 7.5 meters. These are the most accessible and cheapest to replace. You're looking at roughly $225 to $800 for parts and labor. A deep well jet pump uses a two-pipe system and can pull water up to 30 meters, a bit more complex, and replacement runs $400 to over $1,000. But the one you're going to see the most often on modern drilled wells is the submersible pump. This unit lives down inside the well casing, underwater, and it pushes water up to the surface rather than pulling it. It's efficient, it's powerful, and it's the right choice for deep wells. But the catch, getting one out requires a specialized derrick truck. When a submersible fails, you're not just buying a part, you're buying the labor to extract it from the ground. So when you're walking through a rural property, ask one simple question. How old is the pump? If the answer is close to 10 to 15 years, you're looking at a near-term capital expense. Factor that into your offer. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But first, there's something even more important than the pump, and that is what's actually in the water. This is the section that saves people tens of thousands of dollars, so pay attention. There are two things you need to evaluate when it comes to a private well: how much water it produces and what's actually in the water. Let's start with the quantity. A well's recharge rate is how fast the aquifer refills after you pump water out. The industry standard in British Columbia is a minimum of 14 liters per minute for a continuous 2-hour period. A professional flow test runs between $200 and $300 and answers that question definitively. If a well can't hit that baseline, the property may need an interior holding cistern to buffer supply during peak morning usage. That's a real cost you should know going in. And now, the big one, water quality. Here's something that surprises almost every city buyer I work with. Unlike municipal water, which is tightly governed under provincial legislation, private domestic wells in BC are largely unregulated when it comes to what you're consuming. The testing burden is entirely on the homeowner. The province recommends annual testing at minimum, but there's no one knocking on your door to make sure that happens. So what are you testing for? At minimum, you need to check for total coliforms and E. coli. The presence of either of those tells you surface water has breached the casing or a septic system is contaminating the aquifer, but that's just the baseline. In the interior of BC, and that includes the Prince George region, there are documented cases of naturally occurring uranium and arsenic in groundwater. These are geological contaminants that exist independently of any human activity. You can't see them, you can't smell them, and you can't taste them. Also, high nitrates from agricultural runoff or a failing septic field are another concern. Nitrates above 10 milligrams per liter are a serious health risk, especially for infants. So how do you test the water? The testing package you want is what the labs call the Comprehensive Essential Kit. It covers over 30 parameters, including uranium, arsenic, lead, and copper. The cost is roughly over $300 for a rural real estate transaction in BC. This is the standard baseline. A basic bacteria-only test runs about $100. A broader chemical package runs over $200. And if you want the full spectrum against all Canadian drinking water quality guidelines, that's going to run you approximately $2,000 to have a complete potability test. One more thing about sampling, you need to run the tap you're collecting from for a few minutes first. Sterilize the fixture, bypass any water softeners or filters, and get the sample to an accredited lab within 30 hours in a cooler below 10 degrees Celsius. If you miss that window, the sample is invalid. And here's a layer of ownership that almost never gets discussed during a real estate transaction. Even if the water tests clean, you may still need treatment. Hard water is extremely common in rural well systems. It is loaded with dissolved calcium and magnesium, and it will calcify your pipes, destroy your hot water tank years ahead of schedule, and render your soap and shampoo dramatically less effective. A standard ion exchange water softener runs $800 to over $3,000 installed, depending on the capacity you need, and you're looking at $100 to $300 a year in salt just to keep it running. If the lab test shows elevated iron or manganese, you need an oxidation filter on top of that. Those range from $1,000 to $3,000. For microbiological protection, a UV disinfection system is the industry standard. These units cost $600 to over $1,000 installed. The UV bulb needs to be replaced annually, and that can run $50 to $200 as a DIY task, or up to $300 if you hire it out. None of this is scary once you understand it. You just need to know it's there, budget for it, and factor it into your decision on a rural property. The buyer who gets in trouble are the ones who evaluate a rural property the same way they would a city home. It's not the same transaction. The due diligence is different, the inspection requirements are different, and the ongoing cost model is different. But navigating the Prince George real estate market doesn't have to be stressful. I have a free seller's guide if you're planning a list, a relocation guide for anyone moving to Prince George. But if you're looking to buy and want more tailored information, ask for my Home Buyers program. On top of the buyer's guide, I'll send you exclusive weekly videos and emails to walk you through the process step by step. Just comment the word guide below. Tell me which ones fit your situation, and I'll send the link right over. And when you're actually ready to look at homes or list your property, the easiest way to connect is call, text, or email. All those details are in the description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.